Welcome to Raise Nation Radio, the podcast for nonprofit movers, shakers, and change makers. We are here to fuel your passion with a daily dose of fundraising inspiration while keeping the conversations and connections from the annual Raise Conference alive all year long. Tune in for fresh perspectives, bold strategies, and the hottest trends lighting up the nonprofit world. Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned pro, buckle up. Each episode is packed with lively discussions, expert insights, and creative solutions to help you make an even bigger impact. Now get ready for another exciting episode. Please welcome your host from OneCause, Dawn Lego.
Welcome back, Raise Nation Radio fans. So glad that you're joining us today. And thank you for making the show so popular. Whether you've been with us for the beginning, 160 something episodes ago, or tuning in for the first time, we love connecting with you in just a very casual manner on our podcast. So today's episode promises to be very meaningful, filled with insightful and actionable items and conversations from our incredible guests. So without further ado, you know who I'm introducing right now. They are such familiar and respected faces in our space. They're my friends, my colleagues, and I've been waiting since last year, this time, to connect with them again because I have some AI questions for them that I want to uncover. Please welcome back to the show, Steve Lausch and Sebastian. Hi, Steve. Hi, Sarah.
Hey.
Well, you know what I'm going to ask. I don't want to jump ahead, but ever since last year, I've been waiting to ask the AI question because we asked it for the first time in the 2024 Fundraising Outlook, and now it's the 2025 Fundraising Outlook, and I can't wait. So that's what we're talking about today: insights, actionable strategies, findings, all the things from the research study. I'm jumping ahead. I'm so sorry because I'm excited.
You're excited.
But
That's okay.
Steve, can I turn it over to you to calm me down a little bit? Can you just talk about the Fundraising Outlook study and what all that entails?
Sure. Happy to. Dawn, thanks so much for having us back on Raise Nation Radio. First of all, it is great to be back on the mic and here with you, and of course with Sarah. And yes, we do geek out on this stuff. We love it. It comes once a year, and it might as well be Christmas. It's great stuff. But before we dive into some of the findings, let's talk a little bit about kind of the survey that is behind the findings, behind the study. So here at OneCause, we've been surveying for years. I think we've been doing about 7+ years of developing a study of this size and 5 years of releasing the data as the Fundraising Outlook report. So the survey launches every year. Folks love this. If you attend Raise, and if you don't, you need to learn about Raise. Don, maybe we talk about that later. But it launches every year at the Raise conference, and it's generally in market about a month. So this last iteration of our annual nonprofit survey launched at Raise mid-September of 24, was in the market for about a month, and we had 977 individual unique nonprofits, all shapes, all sizes, all segments, representing all kinds, like different full-time employee numbers, different annual operating revenue numbers. They all rose up to the occasion and self-reported their own data, which is huge. So we're getting the real voice of real nonprofits, and a couple other figures I'll toss by you. We track who at these nonprofits is answering the survey. And we're finding that about a quarter, actually this year was exactly a quarter, 25% are executive directors, 32% are development staff, development directors, development VPs, and the like, 15% event directors and VPs, and so on. Bottom line, Dawn, is that the nonprofits here in our audience today are getting data from real-life peers who volunteer their information, and they're decision makers.
Yeah.
85% of them influence decision when it comes to tech processes. They can give you the real story when it comes to challenges, successes, all the good things that we're going to talk about.
And really diverse. I mean, we're not
Super diverse.
This is skewed to nationals, enterprise, or small grounds. It's just a very good
Absolutely.
representation. So that's what I love about this report. And the three of us love to geek out on data. So let's get into the findings. Sarah, you want to start us off?
Sure, absolutely. I'll kick things off with something that may seem kind of obvious, but it's definitely worth mentioning. And it's that event and online fundraising, they're huge for nonprofits and they really drive their business, right? What we've noticed, and this was last year as well, it's really significant, is that it's even more important for those smaller organizations, the smaller nonprofits. So 60% of nonprofits with annual operating revenues that were under $1 million reported that they raised 21% or more of their revenue from these online and event fundraising channels. And that's a really big deal. It's helping these smaller organizations stay financially stable and hopefully grow their donor base, even more importantly, right?
Wow. Okay. So they really rely on, did I hear you say that right? Revenue from events and online, right? I want to underscore that, right? That they may not have the resources, let's say, to apply for grants or other funding like large organizations. So it's really events and online that's helping them grow their impact.
Right. Yeah. And they may be a 1-person, 2-person team. They don't have those resources like you said.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. Okay, so what about event formats? That has been a big thing ever since that 2020 episode. So all types of event formats, online, hybrid, virtual, in person. Any interesting data there to
Oh, yeah.
report?
Absolutely, for sure, is a short answer. But now that we're post-pandemic, and I think we can all breathe that sigh of a relief, at least in terms of large-scale changes to how we do business, how we interact with one another socially, professionally, et cetera. I think a lot of people are wondering about whether they should go all in person for all of their events or keep some hybrid options for some of those events as well on their calendar. But one key thing that we saw in the data is that in-person and hybrid events both continue to be major drivers of fundraising success, period. A couple stats for you, Dawn.
Okay, please.
76, yeah, I know. We got to share some of these good stats that are in this document, in this report. 76% of organizations, so 3/4, right, are using hybrid. They met or exceeded their goals, their fundraising goals for the year. 75% of those hosting only in person did the same thing. Both formats, they're working really well for nonprofits. So I would say it's clear, first of all, that events, whether you're in person, all in person, or whether you're still folding in that virtual element, is a great way to raise money and build those connections. And if you really pull the kind of distill what the data is telling us, and you want to meet and exceed your fundraising goal for a year, events are where it's at.
Events are thriving.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. And I do want to point something out. We have seen that these hybrid events have been so effective. And I know people have had questions about it. Like, do we still do these? I don't know. Only about 1/3 of the nonprofits that we surveyed said that they plan to host any hybrid events in 2025. And I just want to emphasize, yes, they do take effort. They do take some effort to be done really well. You need to engage both of those audiences, that in-person and that virtual audience. They can still be so successful and bring in a lot of funds and really bring in that return on investment. I think it was Samantha Swain from Swain Strategies did a really great presentation
Love
about
her.
storytelling about this with this incredibly successful hybrid event. Some effort went into it, but the ROI for that organization was huge. So they're great for broadening that reach, engaging those audiences, and just making events more accessible to everyone too.
Well, I believe it. Not only is it in the data, and we have to believe it, right? But yesterday we had a webinar on the Fundraising Outlook, a little bit more structured, slides, charts, all that good thing, which, by the way, to our audience, we'll drop the link to the webinar on demand so you can have a little more flavor in the show notes. But there were a lot of comments, guys. Do you remember in the chat and the Q&A about people having hybrid events? Super successful, exceeding expectations, right? And Samantha Swain is a big proponent of that. So it's all adding up. Yeah, the data doesn't lie. The numbers don't lie. So, all right, let's keep going. So, so any types of, I'm going to hit the hard questions, right? We want to get down to the nitty gritty. Any type of fundraisers that were more successful than others? I'm sure our audience is like,
I'll give you the
yeah.
top two.
Okay, good.
Although I would highly encourage our audience to download this report and look at all of the data on all the different types of campaigns and fundraisers, relative success for each. But let's hit the top two. Number one, in-person auction events. In-person auction events. All of those go together, right? And the other one would be golf outings. But let's hit the first things first. These were same as the last couple of years, but 82% of our respondents rated in-person auctions as either somewhat successful, Dawn, or very successful. And we love to hear that. Events with auctions, they are incredible drivers of engagement. They are incredible drivers of fundraising, and they're getting strong. They're getting stronger.
Stronger, yeah.
Yeah. And the other one I want to tell you about is golf events. So last year, there was a decrease in the percentage of orgs who reported golf events as very successful. That would have been in our last year's report. But there was a rebound this year. So up 5 points to 44%. And we're seeing a lot of interest in nonprofits in hosting golf events. So if you're listening today and you have a golf event or you're considering a golf event, it is among one of the most successful ways to fundraise and drive engagement.
So what are you telling me, Steve? I need to go dust off my golf clubs and practice that swing and okay.
Yes,
I guess that's what happened. And we have a lot of content on OneCause.com about how to get started with golf events and a great community and network to help you. So reach out to us. We
do.
Can help.
I love that because we actually have a host of resources on OneCause.com, and certainly go there, check out all the free resources on golf. But Don, I'll add 2 cents in here real quick that in the last year, OneCause actually built a solution specifically for golf event management right into our OneCause fundraising platform. I don't know if folks know that.
Juicy.
Yeah. I don't know if folks know that because it was a little bit later in 2024, but it's perfect for your spring, summer, and fall of 2025. Or you folks listening in Florida, you can get started right away.
All year long.
All envious of you. But here's the bottom line. Until we did that, nonprofits are typically doing one of 3 things with golf events. They're like shoehorning their event software that is talking about tables and just things that have to do with the ballroom.
Yeah.
But they're shoehorning that event software, or they're cobbling together different spreadsheets to try to make sense of all the details. Or number 3, they're just going to invest more money in yet another golf fundraising software, which that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no.
So now with this, what we build into the platform, all the logistics of a golf event, sponsors, tickets, registration, cart number, tracking starting hole for shotgun starts, teams, messaging, all of that, plus the fundraising is all together in one place. So enough of that, but I wanted to mention that because it's super cool.
It's actionable too. And guys, Raise Nation Radio, you heard it from our director of product marketing. He would know. So golf is where it's at. I'm going to go dust off those golf shoes. All right. So we talked about the fun stuff, auctions and golf. Fun. Can we talk about the challenges and the priorities and like what we're trying, it's a rough landscape, right? What are we overcoming and what challenges are we seeing?
Yeah, sure. I can talk about that. And first of all, I am in Florida right now and it is unseasonably cold for us. So I'm sorry. I haven't.
But you still can play golf. I'm sorry.
I haven't seen anybody golfing. It's actually been a little bit too chilly for that here for us Floridians. We're wimps, apparently. I'll talk about challenges. So this year, nonprofits they're feeling the pressure when it comes to long-term sustainability. We've seen more economic up and downs the past few years. People have been worried about inflation. So those top 3 challenges are really kind of tied in with that sustainability. We had recurring giving, donor engagement, and year-over-year growth topped the charts this year. And the most pressing was recurring giving. 88% of organizations said that's either a concern or a critical issue. Donor engagement clocked in right behind that at 87%. And then that year-over-year growth, 86% of nonprofits said that was a big challenge for them as well.
And Sarah, you just mentioned 3 of the really big ones, or a few of the really big ones. I can't remember you hit 3 or 4, but there's like 12 or 13 that we've tracked for year over year, all these years that we've been doing this report, and even before the publishing of this report. But I want to touch on something real quick that we've been tracking, speaking of year over year. And if you were to take each of those challenges, those dozen challenges. So Dawn, if you take the metrics of those and you average the relative weight of challenge in any given year, You following me? And
Yes.
then we're gonna put that against the year prior and the year prior, and we're gonna watch for a trend. We actually saw that trend grow. Nonprofits were telling us starting the year 2020, go figure, that things were getting more difficult. 2021 more difficult. 2022 more challenge. And then in the 2023 data, we saw that level, that average level of challenge abate a little bit, reduce a little bit. Well, in 2024, with the 2024 survey, now in the 2025 report, it kind of ticked up again. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the market, again, we're talking 1,000 voices, 1,000 nonprofits of all shapes, sizes, segments, et cetera, speaking into the saying, hey, things are getting a little bit more challenging, but we'll watch that again and we'll
Yeah.
report it again. If you'll have us back a year from now, we'll tell you what happened.
Well, every year you whet my appetite. There's always something that I want to have a crystal ball and look at the next year. And to our audiences listening in and trying to follow all these stats, not to worry, just enjoy the episode and our banter here about data. We'll drop the link to the full report in the show notes so you'll have access to all of these numbers that we're throwing at you. But I'm curious, I'm very, very concerned about just the different size organizations, because sometimes you have reports that are skewed to, one segment or the other. And then as a nonprofit, you're like, oh, this doesn't really apply to me. What did we see there with the different size organizations?
Yeah. So when we did zoom in at a revenue level, we saw that those smaller nonprofits were struggling with year-over-year growth. You'll see in the report that their overall fundraising success rates have kind of remained largely unchanged over the past couple of years, which looks good next to some of the shifts for other revenue bands. But it also shows that they're not really budging. They're stagnant. They're worried about how to grow. So you'll see success rates, people meeting or exceeding fundraising goals, but those percentages haven't really changed for those small nonprofits. They're just kind of sitting there.
And then for the larger nonprofits, if we want to talk about those, we saw that the recurring giving was more of a concern for larger organizations, and that donor fatigue really followed the size of the organization. So if you compare your smaller nonprofits, they ranked a bit lower in the concern of donor fatigue, larger organizations higher on that marker. So download the report, check out page 11. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And it's a really clear pattern that stands out.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
It goes like page
Page 11.
It does.
All right, we're gonna focus on page. We'll drop page 11 right into the show notes for you guys, so you could get right there to it. But so I love the data, but I also love converting the data into some actionable insights. So can you share anything? Was there anything in the findings about what nonprofits are doing to overcome some of these challenges?
Well, in terms of how they're going to address those challenges in 2025, they certainly have their priorities clear. We asked these 977 nonprofits, and like in years past, they are prioritizing a couple key things. I don't think they're going to be surprises. Donor acquisition, donor retention. 98% of nonprofits said acquisition was that top priority. And 95 said the same thing about retention, that it was also right up there. We did see more organizations rate donor retention as being critical. So we asked them to rate on a scale, Dawn. And so we saw more criticality, more gravitas, if you will, around that donor retention, which is great news, right? We know it's easier to retain a donor than to acquire new donors. And it's certainly less expensive to do that in terms of your time and effort and resources.
Yeah. And that was a very positive change that we saw. There does seem to be more balance seeking this year when it comes to retention. And one other thing I did want to touch on is that we saw a 3-point increase in the percentage of nonprofits who said they were going to prioritize new ways to fundraise. And I know I mentioned this on the webinar too, but that made me think of our giving experience study where we surveyed donors, social donors. There were a large percentage of donors, especially younger people, who are motivated to give when an organization shows innovation and adaptability when they're addressing challenges. So it was really encouraging to kind of see those organizations being willing to try something new, maybe some innovative fundraising tactics and strategies that they haven't tried before to get ahead of things and appeal to some donors. Yeah.
Sarah, I love that you made that point. And on the webinar yesterday, you'll remember, I love the whole concept with new ways to fundraise. And I think that is a really great key for nonprofits that are listening today. because if you are concerned about donor acquisition, it may be that a new method of fundraising will attract a new audience, and adding some variety to the mix, it's a good way to do that. Attract new donors, engage your current donors with something a little different. 85% told us that they are prioritizing this in 2025, Don. So it's clear that a lot of nonprofits are open to new ways of fundraising, especially if it's made easier by their technology.
Mhm.
That's the key. If it takes more time, I'm not interested. Takes more effort, no thank you. But if you make it easy for me, I'm going to consider
I'm going to
it.
consider it.
And I think they're going to see some great results.
Yeah, well, we can't keep doing the same thing the same way and thinking our results are going to change, right? So
Right.
let's work smarter and let's find innovative ways to fundraise. Oh, I love this. Okay, guys, I'm going to take you back. 365 days ago, we wrapped up this podcast on last year's Fundraising Outlook, and I immediately slacked you guys, right? And what did I say? I can't wait to see how the responses for AI change this year, right? So we're here now. Did we ask again about AI and how did it change? And I'm going to put my money on red and say it significantly changed.
Ding, ding, ding.
Ding, ding, ding. Winner, winner.
There were some really big changes here. We know that things are moving incredibly fast in the world of AI in general, and more people are using it every single day. This extends to the nonprofit sector. It's everywhere. You can't not encounter AI, right? Last year, there was a ton of uncertainty. I think for our uncertain or our I don't knows, we had gray in the charts. There was a ton of gray everywhere, mostly gray. But this year, it's super clear that adoption and usage of artificial intelligence, they're shooting through the roof. Knowledge alone saw some huge jumps. 9-point increase in people saying they had a working knowledge of AI. 7-point increase in those who said they had at least some understanding of terms and concepts. This is in a report where we've seen like 1 to 2-point increases here and there in other spots. So those are big. So really just nonprofits are becoming much more confident. They're becoming much more open to exploring AI-driven solutions. And it's really exciting because we think that will really help them with their efficiencies and more impactful fundraising strategies too.
Yeah. And because nonprofits, Don, know more about AI, because they're more familiar with AI a year later, they're definitely feeling more optimistic about it for 2025. So a couple more stats to throw at you. And by the way, folks, if you're listening, you are listening today, and if you're on audio only, Don's smile is about as big as a grin as I've ever seen on a podcast. She's so excited for this data. So here you go, Don. 60% now believe that AI will bring great benefit to the sector, which last year at this time, 41% agreed to that statement. So 41% to a 60%, 19% jump. Huge, right? The view that AI is overhyped has also softened. Last year was 31 thought it was overhyped. Now that has dropped significantly to only 14% that hold that view. So that's a big marker. And then more nonprofits will now see AI having a direct impact on fundraising. Nearly half agree it will influence fundraising strategies compared to 36% last year. So that has jumped. Right?
I knew it.
Yeah, it has. Now, that said, there's still uncertainty. Sarah talked about the gray bars. You'll see that in the report. You'll know what we're talking about. There is uncertainty, for example, around how much AI will impact donor privacy. 64% are unsure about how that will happen, right? And how that will play out. Roughly about the same, 2/3, 67% are unsure how AI will be affected by government oversight. So there are things that, of course, have to play out a little bit yet, but we are seeing great trends, great momentum. And I know that those nonprofits are seeing great results.
Yeah, and that last piece you mentioned about the government oversight, I don't know if you guys have seen in the news. There's recently been something about an AI bill in Texas that was passed. It's super restrictive. People are concerned it's going to hamper innovation and growth. So this is kind of a topic that we'll definitely want to keep an eye on. It'll be tricky for a while, I think, as people kind of work out what's going to be harmful. What do we need to put restrictions on? So it makes sense that there's a lot of uncertainty in that area. One area we did see a ton of growth, also was the usage of AI. And this was the most exciting for me, I think. AI for copywriting jumped from just about a quarter of organizations last year to 38% saying that they used it in this year's report. So nonprofits are getting much more comfortable using it for content creation, whether they're using it in their appeals or even for like social media posts or something like that. When it comes to fundraising, AI adoption has grown significantly. In our report last year, 30%, or sorry, in 2024, not last year's, 30% of nonprofits are using AI for fundraising and event planning, and that was compared to 10% in our report from last year. So that is a huge jump. People said they were not using it before, and now they definitely are. I hope we continue to see that jump. Despite that momentum, there are still areas where nonprofits are kind of holding back. We had about half of organizations said they weren't planning to use it for donor segmentation, and 29% aren't considering it for fundraising efforts, which was kind of a head scratcher for me. I'm interested if maybe they're having some issues with donor trust in AI. Do they need to kind of relate to their donors? Hey, here's how we're using it. Here's why we're using it. Your information is safe. So I'm interested in the kind of the reasoning behind that. So really overall, AI is just gaining ground in nonprofit operations, but it's really still early days. We're seeing things developing. These tools are still having
quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, 9-10 point jumps. Now you making me wait for it. I'm excited for next year's report because I think that also has to do with a little bit of training AI, so you don't sound like a bot, and it's still personal and true to your mission and values. So I think we want to crawl before we walk before we run, and so on and so forth. So I mean, it's so interesting because we're just using AI every day. I mean, when I think about all the times that I use AI and I don't even realize it, I feel like that's the same with nonprofits. They don't even realize that they're using it. It's built into their tools, and they don't have to do anything extra. So, come on, Mr. Director of Product Marketing. Some of that at play here. You talked about golf.
Yeah.
Let's talk about AI.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And Dawn, I'm going to harken back to what you just said a couple minutes ago about training AI. And maybe to the average ear, that sounds a little daunting. Like, I don't know how to train AI. I just go to work every day, right? But we have to do a better job of technology providers of calling out where AI is going to work for you automatically. It's just there. And it is working for you. There's no coding, there's no programming. And we've done that, building AI right into the OneCause fundraising platform. And I'll offer two perspectives, okay? So if you think about it, first from the view of the nonprofit and then from the view of
The donor.
a donor. Let's even say an event guest. So first of all, from the nonprofit, if you do use, those of you who are listening at OneCause customers, this is in the platform today for you to use. And our auction descriptions are driven by AI. There you go. So if you're an auction hero and you have dozens, 50, 100, some of you are crazy. Like, you just are crazy. You have hundreds of auction items. I love it. But you will save hours, maybe some of you days of time using those auction descriptions. Our latest addition to your support experience also is driven by AI. It's called the AI Guide. Dawn, that just works. You don't have to do anything. So it'll intelligently engage with you to serve up insights on how to do just about anything or do it better on platform. That's for the nonprofit. But Dawn, let's say you're a guest at my event.
Okay.
And you take your phone
Mm-hmm.
and you look at your OneCause auction on your phone. We have AI built into what you're experiencing right then and there. So first, as you engage with that auction, all your activity, whether you view an item, whether you favorite an item, you bid, so forth, it's watching, it's learning, and all that impacts on how those items in that auction are sorted for you. So that if you have a 50 item auction, you're not scrolling to get to the good stuff. It knows and serves up what you're likely to engage with.
Gets me
view,
every
bid on.
time.
I know. We know who you are. And the bottom line is, I love this kind of, to put a bow on it. It means you're serving up a 100% unique auction experience for each and every attendee. And again, it's not anything you have to do to make happen, right? It's just there. It works. There's no coding, no programming.
It
You get
does
the
work.
idea.
It's been in online retail forever, right? I spent far too much money on ski gear for Alyssa this year because it kept serving me up items that kind of matched and went with my searches. So why not apply it to fundraising? We want to help fundraisers be more impactful, and
Well,
it's what donors expect anyway. They
yeah,
want that experience. So, oh, I love
at
it.
least that's how we do it at OneCause. So,
Yeah. Good. Okay. I
yeah.
love it. All right. So we keep going into the fun stuff, but there are challenges. So any insights from the report to help all of our audience know what their peers are doing to respond to their top challenges? Did we cover that in the report?
Yeah, we did. We talked about our priorities. I kind of have a closing comment as we kind of wrap up. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of our smaller dollar donors. If
They're listening, so go ahead.
So I consider myself a smaller dollar donor. I'll say that. I think if you take a look at some of the data that's out there right now, I believe it was a Fundraising Effectiveness Project report that might have been recent, where it talked about a decline in those small dollar donors. So people who are giving like maybe $25, $100 or less, right? They're declining. And I think part of that reason, and it's tied into this whole sustainability thing, is that they're not being celebrated. People are kind of chasing those huge gifts. They're like, how can I get Mackenzie Scott to give to me? And that's what's getting all of the media attention as well. But these smaller dollar donors are driving, I believe it's like over half of nonprofit fundraising. And just celebrate them, thank them, make that extra effort. And I did mention this on the webinar too, that I give to an organization, Best Friends Animal Society. They call me to thank me for my donations every couple of years. I think I started giving about a decade ago, and you see me looking down because I actually have a message from one of their co-founders on my phone that says thank you, and there's no ask for a gift. It's just thanking for me for my support, and I've continued
Smart move.
to them because
That's
of that.
awesome.
So instead of just getting $25 from me, they've gotten hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So it makes a difference when you do celebrate those small dollar donors. Whether there's inflation or not, people still want to support you. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Gratitude, right? We talk about gratitude all the time, and sometimes that take the moment for that outreach where you're not asking. We get so, in our daily tasks, but we have to remember that we're humanity first and gratitude first. And thank you, Sarah. Thank you for supporting, the missions that you're aligned to, and doing all the good things that you're so generous
Thanks
about
for
doing.
celebrating me, Dawn.
Yeah, there you go. Sarah, some questions for you. What are all the things? We have the webinar, infographic, give me all the things that and resources that you've put together for our community to.
Sure. Yep. We have a lot of stuff out there right now. Of course, the report, which Steve says go download, and I say go download too. But you can find that onecause.com/research. It's right there on our site for you. We have some blogs aligned with this. We have a video. We have an infographic. I believe a couple of our podcasts coming up too with other folks. So just keep your eyes and ears out. And of course, Dawn will put it in the show notes, like she said.
Yes. And the webinar on demand.
Webinar. We've talked about that
Yes.
times.
Yeah.
But we have
And you'll be on Beyond the Donation with Matt Bitsa from DonorDoc. And I think you also recorded a webinar with our partners over there at Virtuous.
We will be. We haven't done that yet.
Haven't done it yet. Okay, so it'll be out and about. So exciting. And then
We're taking this on the road.
Taking it on the road. There you go. So funny. It's going to be
There's
the
a-
Sarah
there's
and
a-
Steve show.
Yeah, well, there's a lot that's gone into this report. And I'll just say, Don, real quick, I know you're wrapping up, but I would encourage folks to consider two sides of the coin.
Okay.
This will give you the nonprofit's perspective, right? Those 977 unique voices in the sector. And then Sarah mentioned the Giving Experience study, over 1,000 donors. Speaking to that research that OneCause publishes as well. So I know you're going to make available both of those. And I think those are two sides of the same coin that really help our listening audience to get a great 360 on what's going on with fundraising today.
Oh, fantastic. It's going to be an exciting year. Steve, I want to dial back to something we said at the top. This report starts at the annual RAISE conference. So who wants to talk about the RAISE conference? Let our audience know, and maybe tag on how they can get involved in the Outlook report next year.
Well,
'Cause I know
love
both of you can
RAISE.
speak to that.
I love RAISE, but I mean, I go every year because it's just a crazy awesome. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, we have like the queen of programming right
We
here on the
do.
podcast with us.
All right. We will be in San Antonio this September. And since you're talking about programming, I'm going to touch on that because there's a limited time. There's a time frame around this. Our call for speakers for the Raise Fundraising Conference is open right now through February 7th. So if you are a fundraiser, if you are in the industry and you have some insights that you want to share with nonprofit audience, please go to the Raise website. You can Google Raise and OneCause. It'll take you right there. And submit a speaking proposal. I look forward to reviewing it. But yes, we are in San Antonio. And Steve, I will let you speak to the survey being launched there because I know that's your kind of
Yeah.
else.
Yeah, that's
8th and 9th, right? It says 8th and 9th along the River Walk. Oh, it's so pretty.
Mhm.
it's going to
It
be
is beautiful.
awesome.
Yeah.
It's going to be
Is
awesome.
registration open? Can people buy their tickets yet?
Registration is open. And right now through the end of the month, I believe we have a $200 off code that's on the registration form. So you can save that. I don't know if you have a special code today, Don. I may have just jumped the gun, but if
Well, you know what? Just audience, hello@onecause.com. Ask Steve, Dorner, Sarah for a code. We'll get you a code. But Steve, go ahead and let's talk about how you kick off the.
Yeah, we kicked off this podcast episode talking about how our annual nonprofit survey fuels the data that is needed for this report every year. And so again, at Raise 2025 in San Antonio, we will kick off that survey again, and it'll be a lot of fun. Don, what do you talk about Raise? I mean, do you talk about the speakers? Do you talk about the networking? Do you talk about
Sponsors.
we have a heck of a lot of fun. The sponsors
The
are
party.
amazing.
The
Yes.
party.
So there's a lot going on there. We could talk about Raise for an entire.
All right, that's another episode.
Yeah, that's another episode.
All right, there's a whole lot that we covered today. Steve, Sarah, thank you so much. I love the conversational format. But if you like a more structured format, we'll, as I said, drop it in the show links, and you'll have all the data as well and access to the full report. All the things we'll drop in the show notes. Thank you for being a fantastic audience and dialing in to the 2025 Fundraising Outlook report findings. It's super exciting every year. Now I'm already looking forward to next year. Steve, Sarah, thank you so much, and for all the work that you do to put into this and to deliver some actionable insights to our audience. Appreciate having you again.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. All right, stay tuned for some infomercials, and we'll see you next time on Raise Nation Radio. You stay fearless.
Ready to find out what's shaping nonprofit fundraising in 2025? We surveyed 977 nonprofit professionals to uncover the latest trends and insights fueling fundraising. The new 2025 Fundraising Outlook study shares where nonprofits are seeing success, what they plan to prioritize in the coming year, and top challenges organizations like yours say they're facing. You'll also get the inside scoop on how nonprofits plan to invest in fundraising technology and see how much the adoption of artificial intelligence has grown. Download your copy of the 2025 Fundraising Outlook today to get the insights your nonprofit needs to thrive in 2025.
Fearless Fundraisers, that's a wrap for today. A heartfelt thank you to our guests for sharing their stories, insights, and expertise. And to you, our fantastic audience, for everything you do to build brighter tomorrows in our communities. We hope today's content inspires you to amplify your mission and grow your impact. Don't forget to join us for new episodes every Thursday, wherever you listen to your podcasts, or catch us on YouTube and on demand at OneCause.com. And before we go, we'd love your help in growing this podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, follow, and subscribe to Raise Nation Radio. Share it with a friend, and please leave us a review so we can continue delivering content that inspires and empowers. Raise Nation Radio is produced in partnership with OneCause, your go-to for digital fundraising solutions that connect nonprofits with their donors and drive results. Visit onecause.com or scan the QR code to schedule a one-to-one with their fundraising experts and explore the latest tools and innovations to help you reach more and raise more. Plus, be sure to check out their extensive catalog of free resources to support your mission. All the links are in the show notes. Raise Nation Radio is inspired by the annual Raise Conference, presented by OneCause. We'd love to see you in person at the next Raise event in September. It's a 2-day experience featuring over 35 CFRE accredited sessions, dynamic speakers, and the latest innovations from our sponsor pavilion, and priceless networking opportunities. And while you're there, don't miss the Fearless Fundraiser Party. It's where memories are made and lifelong friendships are formed. Secure your spot today at onecause.com/raise. The link is also in the show notes. Until next time, thank you for tuning in, and as always, stay fearless.